Anita. Welcome to my channel. This is one of my first videos. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to do a beautiful pair of Dagger Fern earrings made with daggers that measure 5 by 15 millimeters. For this particular project, here's what you need for materials. You'll need approximately 26 Czech daggers, and the ones I'm using today measure 5 by 15. You'll also need some 11/0 seed beads, approximately 18. And if you don't have 11/0s, you can use 11/0 Toho beads as well. You'll also be needing a couple of ear hooks to your choice, and you'll need a pair of sharp scissors to cut your thread, and a pair of flat nose pliers to open up your ear wires to put your completed project on. For threading, I'm using the 8-pound Fireline. You could probably get by with 6-pound, but I wouldn't go any lighter than that because you want these to have a little bit of firmness to how they look. So let me get my materials together and then we'll start the project. I'll be right back. One other thing I failed to mention is the size of needle that I'm using today, and this is a size 10 beading needle, which will work just fine, either a 10 or 11. And what you're going to start out with is one wingspan of your 8-pound Fireline. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to thread our needle, and what I do when I'm using Fireline is I will flatten the tip of the thread with a pair of flat nose pliers. Just gently squeeze, and that will flatten your thread enough to go through the eye of the needle easily. So just holding the thread between your fingers, just gently push that through and grab it with the tip with your other hand. And if you can't grip it with your fingers, use your flat nose pliers to pull it through like that. And there you have your threaded needle. So now we're ready to start our project. One more thing I failed to mention is the dagger beads that you're using, you want to make sure that they are 2-hole dagger beads. As you can see here, this is a 2-hole dagger bead. So what we're going to do is after you've strung your wingspan of Fireline, what we're going to do is we're going to pass the needle through the bottom hole, coming from left to right, like this, through the bottom hole. So pull your thread through, like that. And I would leave a tail of about, at least 10 inches. So with the 10-inch tail, holding your bead between your fingers, you're going to reinforce this by passing your needle through the top hole from right to left. Now we're going to go back through the bottom hole from left to right, like that. Pull your thread through, keep the tail out of the way. And then we're going to pass one more time from right to left in the top hole, like that. And pull snug so that your thread is, and your dagger bead's not going to go anywhere. So that's all nice and secure. That's how it should look. Your tail thread is the bottom, coming out of the bottom hole, and your needle is coming out of the top hole from right to left. Our next step will be to grab another dagger bead, and you're going to be passing your thread through the bottom hole from this direction. So putting your needle through like that, pull your thread, and you're going to join these two dagger beads together like that. So just hold them with your fingers. Now we're going to pass that thread So we're just going through the top hole of the new bead we just added, like that. Pull that through. Now we're going to add a third dagger, and we're going to go through the top hole on the left-hand side of this new dagger bead, like that, and pull. And that's going to position your dagger bead like that. Now that we've added that third dagger bead, we're going to reinforce, and we do that by going from the top hole to the bottom hole of this bead here, then through the top hole of the middle bead here, then through the bottom hole of the bead on the far left, like that. Pull that through. Pull that tight so that it's gathered. So we're coming out of the bottom hole of this far left dagger bead. Now we're going to go in through the top hole of these two beads here. So take your needle, go through the top hole of the first bead and the top hole of the next bead to the right. And if you can't get them through both at the same time, you could go one bead at a time. So we'll do that for the ease of this video. So now I'm going to pass through the top hole of this bead here, like that, and pull. And that step is done. Okay, now we're going to add another bead. The next bead we're adding, we're going to be going in through the bottom hole from left to right, like that, and pull. Bring that bead down to your work, like that. Now we're going through the top hole of the bead we just added, and we're adding another bead on the other side and going through the top hole of this bead. So just kind of hold it together as best you can. Pull your needle through. Just bring that down. And that's going to position the daggers across from each other on top of the existing work. So now that we've added that additional dagger bead, we're going to repeat the previous step, which is we're going to go through the bottom of the bead, last bead we added. Then we're going to go through the top of the two middle beads, like that. And we'll do one at a time because it's going to be a little awkward trying to get them through. So go through the top of the middle two beads. Let's get this tail out of the way. And pull so that your work is together. Now we're going to go through the top of this bead and the bottom of the first bead we just added, like that. And that's your next step. So as you can see, it's starting to graduate and fan out. So at this point, we're going to continue because we want our thread to be coming out of this bead here at the top. So with our thread coming out of the bottom of this last dagger bead, we're going to go in through the top of the bead on the right, pull, and then we're going to go in through the top of the bead on the left, like that, and pull. And just make sure your thread is not getting tangled. So now we're coming out of the top hole of the dagger bead on the left, and we're going to add another dagger on this side, and we're coming through the bottom hole of the new bead we're going to add, like this, and pull. Now we're coming from the bottom hole, bring your needle back through the top hole of that same bead, and now we're going to add another bead to the right side, and we're going to go through the top hole of that bead, like that, and pull. And just try to keep your work straight. Okay, so now that we've come out of the top hole, we need to reinforce and connect it to the existing beads. To do that, coming out of the top hole, we're going to go through the bottom bead and through the center 2 beads top hole, like that. Pull. And because they're at such an angle, you'll have to do these 1 bead at a time. So now I'm going through the top hole of the other center dagger bead here, make sure your work is snug. And now we're going through the bottom hole of the far left bead, like that. And pull. And now go through the top hole of the left and right bead. That completes this row. So 1 bead at a time. Bring your thread through, pull snug, and now go through the top hole of the bead on the right, like that. So this particular project, each earring will have 13 dagger beads. So you will continue adding in pairs of 2 as we did, starting in the bottom hole. When you add, you go add through the bottom hole, then you come through the top hole and add your other bead coming through the top hole, then you go through the bottom hole as we did, and repeat. So continue that until we get these last 6 dagger beads on, and then we'll go on to the next step. So I'll meet you back. Okay, here I am coming to the last 2 dagger beads to be added. I'm coming out of the top hole of the right dagger bead, I'm going to add the new dagger bead coming through the bottom hole. So when you're adding, you're coming through the bottom hole like that. Then you come around the top of the new bead you added through the top hole like that. That's the first of the two. Then your second new bead that you're adding, just following the direction of the flow here, you're coming through the top hole like that. And once we get the two new beads added, there we go. So now that we have the second new bead added, we need to connect it to these two existing ones. So with the second new bead added, you're coming around through the bottom hole like that, facing your work. Then you have to go through the top hole of the existing two in the center like that, one hole at a time. And that will bring those top two new beads that we just added down like that. Now we're going to go through the top hole of the center bead here like that. And pull. And now we're going to go through the bottom hole of the bead we just added right there. And after you go through the bottom hole, then you complete the pattern of the beads you added by going through the top two holes, because right now this is where you're at. So you need to go through this top hole and then the top hole of the bead you just added right there, and pull. So there are your 13 dagger beads added. So from this point, the last step we have to do is we have to string on 9 11/0 seed beads. So you can use either Miyuki 11/0s, which is what I typically have in stock, or you can use Toho 11/0s. Now the Toho 11/0s are slightly bigger than the Miyukis, so it really doesn't matter on this particular pattern. But so from here we're going to pick up 9 11/0s. Like that. And we're coming out of this top hole of our dagger bead, and we're going to come around the top hole on the opposite side, pointing your needle towards the center of your work, and pull. And that closes the loop. So now we want to reinforce that. So to reinforce that, we're going to come through bottom hole on the left, like that. You can turn your work around if it's easier, because you want to come back through all of the 11-0 seed beads. So with the work facing this direction, makes it a little bit easier. So just bring your needle through the 11-0s, a few beads at a time, until you've gone back through all of the seed beads. And this second pass should be enough. So there, we'll just continue going through, pulling our thread, snug, go through these last three, and then down through the dagger beads, like that. Now at this point, I'm going to do a half hitch knot right here to go ahead and secure my work. So to do that, you can just pass your needle through the thread bridge that's there. Let's get this tail out of the way, like that. And pull it until you have a little loop at the end. And then bring your needle through that loop, like that. Be careful not to tangle your thread. And you want to pull that knot as close as you can to your work, like that. So then travel down through the top hole of the next bead, like that, and then up through the top hole of the next bead, like that, and do another half hitch knot right here. So go under the thread bridge with your needle, pull your thread until you have just a small loop at the end, like that. Pass your needle through the loop, and then pull. So at this point, I'm going to just bring my needle up through a few more beads. We're going to go through the bottom hole here, like that. Pull. Then down through the top hole, like that. Then up through the top hole of this bead here, pull, and then down through the bottom hole of that bead there. At this point, we can cut this thread right here. So with a sharp pair of scissors, just bring that close to your work and cut. This particular thread here, I'm going to put a needle on the end and thread that through a few beads, and then we'll cut that thread. So I'm going to thread my tail thread by flattening the tip, pass that through my needle, and pull like that. So my tail thread is coming out of the first seed bead, or the first dagger bead that we added down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to travel through the top hole like that to reinforce. I'm going to tie a half hitch knot right here. So bring your needle through the thread path and then through the loop and pull. Now come through the bottom hole of the next bead, through the top hole of that bead, like so, then through the top hole of that bead. And I think we can cut that thread at that point. So bring that nice and tight, get your scissors, and cut as close to your work as you can. So that completes this earring. All we have to do now is add on our ear hook. So using a flat nose pliers, you want to open this, and you want to open it in such a way that it will be easy to close. So always with your ear hook flat, take your needle nose and open by twisting up like that. Just enough to go around the 11 O's. And then position your earring over like that. Take your flat nose and close the hook by pressing down, making sure there's no gaps like that. So there you have it. A beautiful dagger fern earring. And you only needed 3 different items of materials: daggers, seed beads, ear hooks, and Fireline. So that completes this project. This is my first video. I hope that you give me a big thumbs up and you subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be having lots of new material. I also sell my own jewelry, which I will leave that link in the description box, and you'll see that on the screen as well. And I have free shipping on purchases over $25. So please feel free to shop, and I'll see you at the next tutorial. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, happy beading week. Bye-bye.